Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. I hope y'all are enjoying this new setup that I seem to be settling into. This is one of the only places in the house where I can kind of sit comfortably at this point. So I hope you enjoy the change of locale. So today I'm going to talk about something that I've been going through recently, and just looking through my comments, I think the struggle is real for a lot of us, and that is a reading slump. So it has actually been probably 2.5 or 3 years since I've had a reading slump, but there was a confluence of events this March that firmly took me out of one of my most productive reading on a roll modes I've been on in a while. January and February, I was just cranking through things and really in the mood to read. But March had the quadruple whammy of tornadoes hitting my neighborhood, of getting kittens, of having emergency surgery, and then being in lockdown. And by the time I was in the hospital recovering from surgery, I just could not focus on anything to read for the life of me. And it had been a few days since I'd been able to, because I was in so much pain. So I went there for almost 2 weeks without really reading much of anything. And I know that that may not sound very long, but for me that is a really long time, because typically reading is kind of my main kind of avenue for escaping or entertainment or what have you. I'm a prolific reader. I read between 250 and 300 books a year. So that was actually a very long time for me to not read anything. And then since then, I have been slowly getting back into reading, still not at the pace I was at, and frankly, I don't anticipate being at the pace I was at for a while, but I thought I would just kind of talk about what I do when I'm in a reading slump, some of my kind of strategies. I don't think any of this is going to be revolutionary, but I kind of just wanted to put this out there as a way to say hey, I think we're all feeling the struggle these days. So here are some of the things I do that have been working for me recently, and my tips about how to get out of a reading slump in general. So the first tip that I have is that if you are finding yourself in a reading slump, you've got to kind of write it out. So what I mean by that is, it is not productive to try to force yourself to read if you are just not in the mood to read. I'm not talking here about people who have to read maybe for school or for work. If there's something you have to read, this is not talking about that. I'm talking about if you're reading for pleasure, even if you have organized pleasure reading like I do, where I do a lot of challenges. I pick TBRs and kind of talk to you guys about this as my hobby. So, I have more structure to my reading, but ultimately I read for pleasure. So as long as you are reading for pleasure, if you are not in the mood to read, then why are you trying to make yourself read? If it is not bringing you pleasure, don't do it. So it will also make it worse, I think, because I found that when I try to kind of get back in the water too soon, if I'm not in the mood to read, I just don't end up liking what I pick up. So I kind of tested the waters a little bit with a few different books, and was just, for a while there, really just not making progress on any of them, even though I was sort of objectively in my head enjoying it. I wasn't making progress because I just wasn't in the mood to read. And really a good example of this was The Last Wish, which was a book that I ultimately ended up really liking. And luckily it was in short stories, so I didn't stall out on it in the way that I would have if it had been a continuous narrative. It was easy to kind of pick up and put down. But before my surgery, when I was in pain, I was really struggling to try to get through it, even though I liked it. And it was because I was in pain and my brain just couldn't focus on it. So my number one tip is, if you are in a reading slump, don't try to force it. You gotta kind of just wait it out. Maybe, watch some TV, do a puzzle, play a game. Don't go out right now, but FaceTime with people. Don't try to force it, because it just won't work, and you'll end up not liking the book that you're trying to read through no fault of that book. It just, you intrinsically are not in the mood to read. So number one tip is, don't try to force it. Write it out. Number two, so when you start thinking that maybe you do want to read a little bit, if you want to kind of test the waters, my suggestion is to pick a comfort reread if you are somebody who does any kind of rereading, because you will know that it's not the fault of the book. So you're not going in blind, and you will have an objective standard as to if you are enjoying the act of reading, because you're reading something that you already like. So this is definitely something that I've been doing. I did some rereading of Noelle Adams, did a little light rereading of some Agatha Christie, and then I did a full reread of a historical romance that is a take on the Pride and Prejudice story, those characters, called Unequal Affection. Just some cozy comfort rereads for me were kind of how I tested the waters to see if I could enjoy the act of reading. And I did. I went, after a couple of weeks, I was like, okay, yeah, like I'm able to actually focus on this. You know, I know the stories and it's just clicking in this really cozy part of my brain. So it isn't reading as actively because you do know what happens, but just to kind of get back in the act of reading, I think rereads are a great way to kind of re-trigger that part of your brain. And I also find that rereading for me triggers a very similar emotion as TV watching, which is it's like I'm engaged, but I'm like passively engaged. I'm not having to actively work in the same way. So for me, that's a very easy transition mode. If I've not been in the mood to read and I've just been sort of vegging, watching TV or movies, rereading really kind of is the same level of effort, but it's doing the act of reading. So it kind of gets those juices flowing a little bit again. So then my third tip is to, once you've kind of like, you're really getting back in the groove a little bit, you're able to reread, you're, enjoying that. Pick a book you are super excited to read. Because if you are excited for it, it's not like, I think some of what happens in a reading slump is you get to this place where you have almost this like anticipatory dread of reading, which is awful because like you like reading, but then it becomes like this pressure-filled act. And I think that can be stressful in the midst of this like pleasure-filled thing. And you feel frustrated with yourself, whatever. So if you pick a book that you're really excited about reading, I think for some reason it just kind of takes the pressure off for me. So for me this time, the book I picked was Alpha Night by Nalini Singh, one of my most anticipated books of the year. The Side Changeling series is just like an old faithful series for me. I love the world. I know those characters and love them. It's a very just comfortable series for me that I just love and was excited to read. And I knew that this was going to be one with a Sai and a Changeling, which is like my favorite combo when that happens in this series. So I was really excited for it. So it didn't feel like work to pick it up. Once I was comfortable that I was truly back, like kind of getting in the groove of reading again, that was a great one to go to because it just really, I knew it was going to hit the spot, and it did. So pick something from your TBR that you are genuinely super excited about when you're ready to try a new read for the first time. And I think that helps kind of get you going, get you excited for it. And then I've got kind of 3 tips from there. So one, think about audio. If you are somebody who likes audio at all, because it's not you actually sitting there and looking at something, audio reading does trigger a different part of your brain than reading with your eyes. And I think that can be a good way to kind of ease back into things. I'm somebody who listens to a lot of podcasts, so nonfiction audio is always a really good choice for me. It's something that it feels relaxing in a different way than physically reading does. So I've started the audiobook Say Nothing, which is about the Troubles in Northern Ireland, which got so much hype last year. It's really good so far. And it's just sort of a different part of my brain that's being worked. And it's a way to sort of ease back into a longer narrative through a different medium. So if you like audio, I think that's a good route to go if you're in a little bit of a slump. Another tip I have is to think about reading some shorter books or some novellas, because I think what that does is it gives you some confidence. Like it makes you feel like, yeah, I got this. I can read something and I can finish it. I think that can be a good route to go when you're kind of picking your steam back up. So for instance, I've got, I'm doing the Owls Magical Readathon this month, and I purposely put some shorter things on there knowing that I was in a little bit of a slump. I put some shorter things on there because I knew that would help me like build some confidence. So 2 of them are The Deep by Rivers Solomon, which is basically a sci-fi novella, and then The Red House Mystery by A.A. Milne, which is a classic mystery. And both of those I think are under 150 pages. And I think when you pick a shorter book, what that does is, like I said, it just kind of gives you a sense of like, yes, I can start and finish something, enjoy it, and it kind of reminds you of the whole, like getting a whole story in, but with less of a time commitment, so there's less of a chance of you getting derailed on it. So like I said, I just think that shorter things can also be a good way to kind of ease back in after a reading slump. And then last but not least, I would say once you you've done some maybe comfort rereading, you've read a couple of things that you're really excited about, maybe you've done some, shorter books in the mix to kind of build your confidence, I would say slowly start branching out a little bit. So maybe this doesn't apply if you are somebody who primarily reads in 1 or 2 genres, but maybe this applies for like slowly branch out to new authors in your genre, whatever. But I've been sticking pretty much to romance and mystery because those are my 2 like comfort genres, aside from, audio nonfiction. Like those are kind of my three mainstays. And so now I'm wrapping up right now a thriller set in Antarctica, and I'm going to start branching out a little bit. So, maybe I will do another sci-fi kind of thing, or maybe I'll pick a fantasy or whatever. Like, once you kind of have gotten your legs back under you a little bit, like, really do that before you fully branch out. Because I think that there's nothing wrong with staying in your comfort zone when other things around you are uncomfortable in terms of your reading life. So, slowly branch out as you're ready, but don't be afraid to fall back onto, your sort of tried and true genres, or your tried and true authors, or your tried and true series. Like, this is the time to read those, lean into them, and then very slowly broaden again. Because I think you can, once you're kind of coming out of a slump, it's easy to get re-slumped. So you want to avoid that. So, slow and steady wins the race. Eventually things will kind of start getting back to normal. Yeah, so that's just kind of my thoughts about how you beat a slump in your reading. I do, though, want to just say, I've seen some good articles and heard some good podcasts of people just reminding us all, like, it's okay to be in a slump right now. It's okay to not be able to focus on things right now. It's okay to not be productive, whatever. This is a weird time, so really be kind to yourself. Like, I think I've seen things posted about, like, about how, things that people want to get done while they're sheltering in place. And I think if it's a good distraction for you, go for it. But also just know that there is a part of your reptilian brain that is on constant alert right now. So it's not surprising that it's hard to focus on stuff. Like, that's not a shock. That makes a lot of sense. It's true, I think, for a lot of people based on my comments. It's definitely been true for me. When there's so much going on, it can be hard to focus on something. So be really kind to yourself, and don't put pressure on yourself to get out of your slump if you're not ready to get out of your slump. Maybe you need to just, like, chill out and watch Tiger King over and over again until we're out of quarantine. Like, maybe that's what you need to do, and that's completely fine. So I wouldn't put pressure on yourself to get out of a slump if you're in one right now. Know that you are by no means alone. I think that this is something I'm seeing across the booktube community, people talking about how hard it is to focus and how, it's just a little bit of a struggle right now. I'm definitely feeling that. I'm only just kind of getting back in the mood to read. So I guess I basically am saying, like, solidarity, you are not alone. Be kind to yourself, take it easy. And when you're ready to kind of try to de-slump yourself, go slow, ease into the comfort things, and slowly ramp back up. Oh, and FYI, just because I am in quarantine lockdown and have the time to do it, and I now can actually sit. Took a month, but I can sit, guys. It's very exciting. I think that I'm going to maybe do a couple of live streams during the week. I mean, so long as I'm working from home, it's pretty low drama getting that to happen. So keep your eyes open. I think that I might just do some hangouts. I've been enjoying other YouTubers who've been doing that as sort of a nice distraction during the week. So yeah, just keep your eyes open. I'm going to try to maybe get into a little bit of a routine of live streaming and just chatting with you guys. Cause yeah, like I said, I've appreciated other YouTubers who've done it. It's just a nice way to have a different kind of, like, community or socialness while we're all social distancing. So keep your eyes open for that. I guess if you want to turn on notifications, that would tell you when that happens. I feel weird asking people to do that because I hate that, but that would let you know when I go live. So yeah, those are my kind of thoughts about beating a slump, and my general just sort of pep talk for all of us that it's okay not to read right now, and it's okay to read if that's a good distraction. Whatever is working for you is perfectly okay these days. But let me know what you do when you're in a slump. How do you get out of a slump? Do you have any tips, tricks, strategies? Definitely let me know that in the comments below. And yeah, I think that will do it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. I hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!